Breaking news confirmed. The printer is coming. No, not from Jerome Powell, but from Donald Trump. Donald Trump just ordered his representatives to buy $200 billion in mortgage bonds to drive down interest rates. And he says this is to make the American dream possible. But let me help you translate. The big print is coming. Do you smell that? The money printer has already been turning on, gradually. But you know what happens after gradually? Suddenly.
I think it's highly likely it'll come this year. And I think when it comes, Bitcoin's going to scream. I mean, we're going to double or triple probably very quickly. So
the dominoes are already starting to fall for the big print. And when that happens, Bitcoin is going to explode. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Let's go. Donald Trump just unleashed a money printer, ladies and gentlemen. And before you go thinking that this is some authoritarian dictatorship type of rule that he has, these rules were actually implemented in 2008 for Fannie and Freddie to go in and to buy mortgage-backed securities. The Fed over time has become a larger buyer of these mortgage-backed securities, but that's not how it always was. And whether it's the Fed or it's Fannie and Freddie, government-sponsored entities, it doesn't matter. When you put $200 billion into the economy and lower interest rates, well, you're going to drum up more activity. And you're going to send risk on assets like Bitcoin to the moon. The Fed has already been pivoting from QT to QE. They're calling it treasury management or reserve management, but we already know what they've been priming for, the big print.
Liquidity is just getting started. I mean, the Fed pivoted in Q4. They didn't call it that, but it is what it is. They call it reserve management, but it's really just QE. They're printing money. They went from letting their balance sheet run off to expanding their balance sheet. 40 billion a month, and that's just the beginning. And as Lynn says, it's she calls it the gradual print, which I accept. I mean, 40 billion a month is only 480 on a balance sheet of 6.5 trillion. That's still modest, but I think the gradual print's going to morph into the big print. I think the reason that's going to occur is that we're back at the point at which money is really tight, and there's all kinds of signs of that. The Fed didn't want to cut rates in the fourth quarter. The Fed didn't want to do what it did. They've tried to rebrand it. They made it seem like, oh, it's no big deal. This is just reserve management. It's not really printing money, but it's printing money. And so, you can smell the big print coming. I think it's highly likely it'll come this year. And I think when it comes, Bitcoin's going to scream. I mean, we're going to double or triple probably very quickly. So it's just the nature of the beast. I mean, it's interesting to me psychologically that everyone in Bitcoin land now feels the way that the gold people felt in 2023 when gold was flat on its ass after, Bitcoin was too, but after Powell did his whole tightening act, it really hammered gold, and more importantly, it hammered the gold miners. And so we were all walking around pretty beat up, wondering if it's ever going to work. And of course, just give it a little bit of time, and it's worked in spades. I mean, gold mining indices, my fund, et cetera, everything's up 150% plus in 1 year. And so I think that's really what Bitcoiners have to look forward to. And, everybody's kind of getting tested. Do you truly have a long time preference or not? I mean, I get it if you bought it a year ago or 2 years ago or whatever, or, even if you bought it at the top at 124, you're down to 90. That's uncomfortable. But those of us who've been around it for a long, long time know that, it can lose 70% of its value and it'll come back. So it's going to come back, and I expect it'll come back with a vengeance this year. By the way, it also makes MicroStrategy just an unbelievably compelling buy. And I find it hilarious that everybody's, shitting on Saylor and hating Saylor, and, all the people who got sucked into these, Bitcoin treasury companies and lost a lot of money are very angry at the narrative that some of the high profile influencers used, this Bitcoin per share metric that they promoted as a kind of a perpetual motion machine, which it wasn't. And so there's a lot of bitterness, and, we just got to wring out all the weak hands, and then we'll go up to a new level. And I think that new level will be somewhere between 180 and 300, something like that. I think that'll probably be achieved, this year, early next year. I mean, but to be fair, I was wrong about this year. I thought gold this year would go to 4,000 or 5,000, so that we got that right. I thought silver would go to 50. It overshot that. And I thought Bitcoin could go to 140, and actually made it to 123, but not for very long. And then it backed and filled around 91, or 80, 90, so it's going to happen. And it's just, people they've got to dial out and take a longer term perspective. If you're not happy with Bitcoin, you're not looking at the longer term picture. That's kind of the way I see it.
So let me ask you a question. After hearing that conversation from Larry Lepard, what do you think you will do to become rich in 2026?
How do you plan on getting rich in 2026?
Become Somalian.
Why?
Because I'm going to move to Minnesota and open up a daycare center with 0 students.
All right, everybody, that's a joke. I hope you can take a joke. But seriously, a good risk-adjusted way to capture the returns from switching from QT to QE and the money printer turning on has been Bitcoin historically. If you don't believe that, let me just give you a few other reasons as to why you should be bullish that came out this week. What's being underestimated right now is all of the run-up that Bitcoin has had from previous cycles has traditionally come from retail and not from institutions. While institutions are locked in. So far this year, we already have almost $1.2 billion of inflows into the ETFs. We're coming up on the 2-year anniversary of the IBIT launch from January 11th, 2 years ago. And what IBIT and BlackRock is saying is that this is just the early days for Bitcoin.
It's only been when's its anniversary? In a couple of days, 2 years since IBIT originally launched, and we've seen it raise tens of billions of dollars. But still, many investors have still just been starting their educational journey around what is Bitcoin, how might it fit in a portfolio. For many financial advisors, maybe they didn't have access to crypto before or even weren't able to buy IBIT until it was approved on their platforms. We're starting to see a much more broader group of people that can and are interested in investing in this asset class. So we see this still being very early days for Bitcoin and Ethereum. It's a lot more about education, a lot more about how does this fit in a portfolio. How might it behave in different market environments, and how could it sit alongside stocks and bonds?
Now layer on a $1.5 trillion asset manager like Morgan Stanley coming online, and you're going to get even more institutional backing and buying. You think this is what that meeting had to do with Michael Saylor and Phong Lee and the Morgan Stanley team a few weeks ago? The institutions are not slowing down, according to Coinbase's CIO.
And this is sort of what's been frustrating for those of us who work on the institutional side for the last 6-7 months has been the delta between retail negative sentiment and institutional and regulatory momentum. So we look back at last year, and I must have been on 20 shows talking about how bad Bitcoin was doing. Net down 6% for the entire year.
Right.
This is an asset that's been the best performing asset by far, by a mile. It's been the GOAT 9 out of 12 years. So institutions understood that. So I don't know a single institution that was putting in the work on crypto and Bitcoin last year that stopped because the asset experienced, quite frankly, typical volatility and was down 6%.
So there was nobody who paused or said to you early in the year, we're thinking of going this direction, we're going to do this, and then called you up and said, you know what, we're going to wait till 26 and see where things are.
On the institutional side?
Yeah.
No. If anything, the rapidly increasing regulatory momentum moved them faster. I think today versus a year ago, I don't know of a single large company that doesn't have an AI and blockchain strategy, or at least thinking of one.
And the gap between retail and institutions is going to close this year. And when that happens, the results are going to be massive. And here's one reason why I think retail is going to start coming online. It's because of Bitcoin adoption happening more broadly, like with Rumble Wallet, a partnership between Rumble and Tether, where they're going to allow creators and people on their platform to be paid with Bitcoin. This is going out to millions of users. This is sovereign money, better money in a better system being enabled for people all across the globe that governments cannot stop. Listen to what their CEO had to say about it.
I'm just really excited to broaden this ecosystem. I've been such a proponent of Bitcoin. Yeah. Prior to the 2024 elections, it was Rumble, didn't really do anything in the crypto space. And then after post 2024 elections, when President Trump won, we stepped on the gas. Mm-hmm. We launched a treasury strategy at Rumble. Rumble even holds Bitcoin in its treasury. And now we're, not only are we holding Bitcoin, but we're creating and broadening this ecosystem by building the wallet and introducing it to creators, introducing it to millions of users that have never touched crypto before. So I think this is the first step in what we'll see is crypto kind of taking over, Bitcoin kind of taking over the world. I really do believe that the banking systems are so archaic. Not only do they do crazy stuff like the trucker protesters and shut down their accounts, but what you cannot do with the Rumble wallet, no government, no Rumble, nobody can shut down your wallet. Yeah. But it's just so much better. I can send $1,000 or $100 to you instantaneously with the lowest amount of fees out there.
So not only are we going to have institutions coming online, but creators everywhere coming online and being able to be paid in Bitcoin. Creators like Theo Von.
Now, I do want to say that MoonPay is one of the biggest partners of our show, which we're grateful for. And they've also allowed me to accept my payment from them in Bitcoin. Yep, that's how I'm doing it.
But it's not just going to be Theo Von that's going to be paid in Bitcoin. It's going to be anyone who wants to transact or create content or media online in the future. And that's a massive deal. And when that comes, we're going to have even more hodlers of Bitcoin. Before we go any further in our show, let me thank our sponsors. Ledn has been the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans since 2018, issuing over $9 billion, almost $10 billion worth of loans to tens of thousands of customers all across the globe. They started from their troubles in Venezuela, needing sovereign money that they didn't want to sell, and they wanted to borrow against a depreciating currency in order to do that, aka the Bolivar. But now you have the opportunity to borrow dollars against your Bitcoin, up to 50% loan to value, which means if you want a $500 fiat loan, well, you post $1,000 in Bitcoin collateral. You can top up your Bitcoin loan anytime and repay it at any time with no penalties or fees. Loans start at just 12.4%, and fiat gets in your account in less than 6 hours. But if you use the promo code or go to learn.ledn.io/simply, well, you get 0.25% off your first loan. Don't sell your Bitcoin. One of the ways you can continue on your Bitcoin journey is to learn how you can take sovereignty of your Bitcoin by removing it from exchanges. Get a coach. Don't just go at it alone, watching YouTube videos, reading blog posts, or things on the internet that could lead you astray. Talk with a coach one-on-one. They'll help you learn how to remove your Bitcoin from exchanges privately, safely, securely, and confidently. Schedule a free 30-minute consultation with the team at thebitcoinway.com/simplybitcoin. Here's some early predictions for 2026. Scott Besson has already come out to say that Donald Trump was laying the foundations for his economic plan in 2025, mainly passing the big, beautiful bill. What that's going to do is unleash American energy and American investment into energy, infrastructure, and other sorts of investments. And people have already underestimated the impact that tariffs were going to have on the economy, saying it was going to drive up inflation. Not only has it not done that, it's also brought our deficit down by almost $100 billion.
I'll go up. This is unreal, the movement in this number. Minus $29.4 billion. We cut it basically in half. We cut it in half. Just consider this. In March, it was $136 billion. Right now, it's a whisker under $30 billion. We haven't been that small in a long time. I don't have enough records here to go back that far, but you're going back a ways.
Next, he's going to lower interest rates while also keeping inflation down with the help of keeping oil prices low through the help of Venezuela. And then after that, I see this happening in the middle part of the year or the later part of the year. Probably around the middle part of the year because midterm elections are coming up. He's going to actually start adding to the Bitcoin National Reserve through Bitcoin mining as a critical piece of American infrastructure or by acquiring Bitcoin itself. I love this take from Fred Thiel. I believe that this is going to happen.
The U.S. government is very scared of the world going away from the dollar. And so they want to ensure dollar dominance. You know, President Trump said he wants the BRICS countries not to abandon the dollar. Right? So if countries are moving to own lots of Bitcoin and trade in Bitcoin, the U.S. has to have a lot of Bitcoin, and they have to hold a lot of hash rate. Because Bitcoin mining, I think is this big misnomer. We should really rename it. It's called Bitcoin transaction processing and Bitcoin network security. Two different functions, right? Because if the rest of the globe has 80% of the global hash rate, well, people transacting in the US with Bitcoin may be locked out of 8 out of every 10 transactions, or 8 out of every 10 blocks. And so it becomes of strategic importance for the US to have a lot of mining inside the country. To do that, we have to have much more liberal energy policies. We have to fix FERC and permitting and all these other things. But the US also has to build a very big strategic reserve of Bitcoin, because we have a strategic oil reserve not because we're short of oil in this country. We pump more oil out of the ground here than Saudi Arabia does. We have lots of gold in Fort Knox, not because the dollar's backed by gold. That ended 50 years ago. We have gold in Fort Knox, so if there's an attack on the dollar, the US government has a way to defend the dollar. And it's not something they talk about a lot. We have a strategic petroleum reserve so the government can control the price of oil domestically, which is what President Biden did not too long ago. So we need a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Other countries know we know that. They know it, and they're starting to buy.
But instead of trying to time when the United States is going to implement their Bitcoin strategic reserve, one thing that you can do is always just continue to stack Bitcoin quietly, simply, and consistently in the background. I love this story from this woman right here who said that she's been buying Bitcoin $1 a day for the last several years, and her performance is up over 120%.
I've been saving $1 of Bitcoin every day for 365 days, and I've been doing the savings challenge for 3 years, since January 1, 2022. And ladies and gentlemen, here are the results. The total value of my Bitcoin savings from this Bitcoin savings challenge is $3,184.31. Compared to the total amount of Bitcoin that I saved, it is 121.75% return. So if you're watching this video today and you want to join the savings challenge, this is your day one. As for me, I'm continuing on my 4th year of the savings challenge. So see you in the next video.
Well, there's nothing stopping you from being able to do that as well. The question is, how are you going to start? And when are you going to start? One of the ways you can stack Bitcoin daily is by getting a Bitcoin mining machine. Not hosting it yourself, but hosting it through a partner like SAS Mining, one of the leaders in Bitcoin-backed mining, and they do it 100% through clean and renewable energy. You don't have any contracts, any middlemen. You buy machines, they plug them in, they host them, they maintain them for you. You get sats that flow straight to your Bitcoin wallet. It's a way of DCAing into Bitcoin just like the woman shared from the video, but in a different format. Use the QR code to get started with Bitcoin mining today and DCAing in hard-earned money and hard-earned sats. Donald Trump just unleashed the money printer. What are you doing to capitalize? This is Dante Cook from Bitcoin Simply. Happy stacking.